like to call to order, please, the February 25th meeting of the Ayer Planning Board. It's 6:30, and we got enough members to start. I love it when we get to the first item on the agenda that quickly. First order of business to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Mr. Chair, I have one minor amendment to the town planner update, which would be a letter of support for the Ayer Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
We're no longer most valuable property, huh? Isn't that the gist of it? Never mind. Thank you.
And we wanted to take Alan off the agenda, right?
He may show up.
Better.
Yeah.
Things to
He could
discuss.
stay on the agenda, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an open-
I've got a motion. Do we have a second, please?
Sorry.
All in favor? Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Let's get to work. Next on the agenda, to approve the minutes of the January 22nd meeting. So that you all know, on page 3, I am just changing one word in the just below the bottom third of the page, the large paragraph that begins with Mr. Bruce Ringwell. In the middle, it says, the third line says, their work-in is currently looking for a permit location as they rent.
Oh.
And I think that the spell checker got us, so I'd like to recommend we change that word to permanent, please. We've had an extra couple weeks to read them. So, any other discussion? I need a motion. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Diskin.
So we need to make a motion to approve the minutes that we're discussing now.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the meeting dated January 22nd, 2019.
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion? I'm sorry.
You just had some.
I know I jumped in.
So,
I can repeat myself if you like.
didn't we want to clarify that halfway down the first page where I made the motion and seconded it?
That's actually been changed, Mr. Diskin. I'm sorry. Yeah. A previous version had Mr. Diskin doing all the work that evening, and that has been updated. For the copy I have.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It is
Right.
not. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I read the wrong one. We have a problem, guys. We probably can't remember what we did back on January 22nd. It turns out Mr. Diskin both made the motion and made the second on the motion.
Oh, I can find it.
Would you mind watching the tape for a moment?
I don't have to watch it too.
Thank you very much. Is it okay with the rest of the members? There we go. Excellent. Good. Okay.
Fine. So we'll straighten that out.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
On page 2, this is a little clarification. Right in the middle of the page, regarding the gentleman over here tonight. The proposed subdivision, this is the paragraph where Mr. Boyd was talking about the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision contains 23 lots where the property size are allowed to have 33 lots. So I think we want to clarify that it's 33 dwelling units under the open space residential development. It's typically discussed as dwelling units, not lots. Can be a lot with a dwelling unit on it, but that's just for us.
So you're recommending that we change that word
I'm
lots to
recommending we
dwelling
change
units?
that to dwelling units, but it'll tie into it.
So it'd say 33 dwelling units?
Yes.
I'm okay with that. Thank you. It's funny, we do use the words interchangeably.
Yes,
It's not,
you do.
because there could be multiple dwelling units and so forth.
Any other?
I don't know.
Not hearing any other recommendations? All in favor?
Just one
Go
other
ahead.
thing.
Sorry.
I know it's a small thing, but on the front page, just where the department Ken was mentioning, we both made the initial motion and second, it says that I abstained from that vote? I mean,
Yeah, you're saying for the meeting minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I
That's
particularly.
previous meeting.
okay, because I thought I abstained from one other thing I couldn't vote on, which was about a subdivision that you just opened and submitted
Yes.
before. That I had to abstain from, but did I? But
You
not-
can't.
You were actually recused from that.
So from the minutes as well?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. Got it.
You would not qualify as opposed to abstaining, which is qualified. With that being said, any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Gordon?
Well, if we're gonna call out
Yeah,
Ken,
I circled that.
got it?
Yes, I got it.
Nothing.
Thank you very much. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes as edited.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes with the changes we just discussed.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Are you going to make a change on the last page?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you. Today's date is the 25th.
Noted.
Noted. Is that right?
Change. Thank you. Would you do that? Thank you very much. Fantastic. That brings us to the next item on our agenda. Review the conservation analysis overview from the Conservation Commission for the Littleton Road subdivision. Were we expecting Joanne?
No, but we have
Jess is
Jess.
here.
I knew Jess was coming. Hey, Jess. Thanks. Are you ready?
Jess, feel free to come up and. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Mr. Chair, I have a few prefatory remarks in this regard. Hopefully, everybody has had a chance to review the conservation analysis that was done for 54, 56, and 64 Littleton Road. As you recall, the planning board approved the preliminary subdivision plan back in, was it December?
Sounds right.
Last year.
Yes. And what the Conservation Commission would like is an indication of how the planning board feels about the conservation analysis. And in reviewing it myself, it's a fairly simple subdivision with the wetlands all on one side, and it's fairly flat parcel. So my recommendation is that the planning board make a positive finding on the conservation analysis, but that the planning board reserves the right to approve a definitive plan later that might be somewhat, that might differ slightly from what the recommendation is, since we do not know if the applicant, when he comes back, might be able to meet strictly the recommendations. So, in fact, what I'd like to do at a future planning board meeting in March is to codify and finalize the process procedure for findings relative to conservation analysis in general, as Joanne talked to us last month about. I'm still in the process of working those up. But I think in general, what the planning board needs to do in terms of these conservation analysis is to review them and to make a finding that basically you agree with the conservation analysis or not, and to recommend that we take that into consideration when the definitive plan comes back to the planning board, which it will in the near future. So, in reviewing it myself, I think, the Conservation Commission did an excellent job in assessing the conservation values of the property and making recommendations. However, the planning board has the last word, so to speak, when it comes to approving the subdivision plan. So, we don't want to be bound necessarily by saying that we will absolutely be able to adhere to all the lots being completely out of the buffer zone or not, say for instance. Though, I think as much as possible, the planning board should work with the applicant to meet the conservation analysis findings. So I don't know if Jess has anything to add from a Conservation Commission standpoint, or...
I know just one of the things we mentioned was, and this being the first analysis that you're doing of the
We'll
issue-
turn our phones on so we can stay in the room with the lights and
Yeah.
flashing.
Oh, speak for yourself.
But just the issue
I have two. You
of
can have one.
Yes, can you come up?
Oh, sure.
Please, if you don't mind.
And introduce yourself for those of us who don't know who you are, please.
Jess Gugino on the Conservation Commission. You know, I think one of the things that, thank you, Julie.
I was waiting for you to say I'm your neighbor.
No, I think one of the things this being the first one, being careful about setting a precedent of allowing surface,
Detention.
stormwater basins, et cetera, as part of the 50% mandated open space. And so we strongly recommend not starting with a precedent on that. And I think the other thing that we had in this, and we'll be including in other similar analyses, would be if there's open space being set aside in a residential development, there should be in that some method of access for at least the residents in the subdivision that doesn't involve going across private property.
Right.
So I actually appreciate that. Actually,
Yes.
if I may, that the reason I asked for the again, I said it was I was trying to read the little, the postage size one we had.
Yeah.
Blow it up on the computer. You should see how hard it gets. But yeah,
See that?
Oh.
to your point that this is the first time out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I think Joanne, I mean, we walked both times, and you guys did a really great job. But going forward, I might find it helpful for me. I don't know about for the board, but I was trying to take the comments and attach them to what's on the plot. So maybe we could because it was great that we got this, and of course we started pouring all over it. But I couldn't even figure out whose comments were ours and whose comments came from the proponent in the beginning. And I don't want to go deep into that at all right now, but I think that's the kind of thing that over time would make it very, very helpful.
So you want something from us that would, what our comments
What your
are?
comment, even circle in a color, I don't know, something like that. I kept seeing this little green line here connected to the road. But when you take a felt tip,
Yeah,
it gets hard to do.
yeah,
Not a critique, but that's this, paragraph 6 noted there, something like that.
yeah.
And I know it can be a hassle when you're going back and forth, so you don't want to make it, tie it that close. But this is great.
Okay,
But you're reading this and you're looking at a 8.5 by 11 triangles and figure it out.
Yeah.
It really is nice. It's nice. But like you said, it's the first time out of the gate for this type of stuff, and we're going to do a lot of learning. And we want to be careful about saying it's going to be this way when we're going to see thousands of these coming out, hopefully over the years.
Right.
Fair enough.
oh, totally,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't think anybody at this table will argue about detention or retention ponds being used as open space.
Yeah, yeah. I know there's a town in Western Mass that has in their bylaw, they've written in specifically that the surface stormwater systems cannot be included as part of the 50%
I
open
remember
space.
correctly. The gentleman who did the night for us, Mark,
Yes.
he meant, I think it's Barry, Massachusetts.
Not buried, but I have it at home.
Yeah.
I could find it again,
Okay.
but
Well, we'll learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll end up with bylaws as wonderful as our last ones were over
Right.
time. Any other comments?
No, I thought it was noteworthy too that second to the last paragraph on the first page about connectivity and accessibility and movement. I thought that was wise, and that we do have to keep an eye on that because it's hardly valuable to preserve the open space. And not only can you just mentioned people accessing it, but what about the wildlife that the open space is about? So, good call.
Yes.
Except for the miles of chain link fence. Yes.
Rebecca Jones, I live at 66 Newton Road, yes. Couple of questions for you. First, when will those of us who are abutters be drawn in and be allowed to view the document and given enough time to view the documents, develop questions? Who do we ask them to? And will we have enough time that if we wish, we can have the plans reviewed by our own engineers, consultants?
That's a good question, Mark. Go ahead.
Yes. Mark Rushmo, town planner. The planning board in its review back in 2018 was reviewing a preliminary plan. So the preliminary plan is a concept. generally indicates the direction that they'd like to go as to the general placement of the lots and stormwater and the open space and all that. But it's not a binding decision. My understanding is the applicant is wanting to come before the planning board relatively soon with a definitive, what's called the definitive subdivision plan, which is the final step. And at that time, once we receive a completed application, a butter notification is part of that process. So you will receive a notice in the mail that this will be a public hearing for a definitive subdivision plan. Planning boards have a much longer time period in which to review definitive subdivision plans compared to preliminary. I think preliminary is only 45 days unless we get an extension from the applicant. Whereas I believe with a definitive plan, the planning board has 90 days to consider the subdivision. So that should afford the abutters as well as the planning board ample time to hire consultants, get other experts in to review aspects of the plan that we would like help with if we so desire.
Okay, good, because I did watch the previous Conservation Commission meeting when Cal went before them to discuss it. I did see there were some changes, and there were a couple of comments he made regarding some changes and some ideas that would have direct impact on my lot that I kind of disagree with his assumptions, because I'm seeing this, I'm living it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what the drainage is and so forth. And it kind of had me a little worried, so I'd like to make sure that I have ample time to have that final plan that he submits so that I can have my engineers review it and come back and give conservation, whomever, the information that I have that he's not including, because he's only looking at things from some property line. And they're not looking at it year round. They are looking at it when they came out last year. It was during the dry season, the very short dry season we had. So some of those things have concerns for me. And I also have just general concerns about what can and can't be required by the boards of the builder, such as they're going to do demolition of 2 existing older homes or structures there, home and garage at least.
Mm-hmm.
What will be done to protect myself and the people on the other side of that from anything that may be in those homes, such as asbestos, lead paint, and the damage to our properties when they try to remove those foundations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Until we have a definitive plan, it's hard to answer all the questions, and I value the input. We really do. I think I heard you ask a couple questions. The overarching one is, when can I have my input?
Right.
And as Mark said, we're working with a proposal. These are boxes drawn on a map by a piece of software at this point. There's no engineering in here or stuff like that. They will eventually bring us a final plan. Whether or not they build to that, no one ever knows, because you don't know what you're going to find in the ground.
Right.
Markets change, houses don't sell. Believe it or not, that happens in Massachusetts sometimes. So there's forces outside of this process. But that process will begin. We'll open a hearing, 90 days. Information is available through the office upstairs. Mark and Heather are here. Your input's phenomenally valuable. All neighbors' input's valuable at that point. I have a feeling in some towns, like when I came from, there are times when no one gets involved and then they wonder what happened. We're starting to see that really change here, which is fantastic. So that's the process by which it goes. Do your engineers get to look at it? If you would like to do that, yes, please do. But share the information with us.
Definitely.
Because ultimately, the engineer, we become the channeling entity that ends up working on behalf of the town's residents and the town with the developer. But that's all great information. And along the way, can you get them to take out the chain link fence?
You mean, Pepsi's chain link fence?
Here we are giving access to everybody from this side to a place you can't get out of.
That's actually something I went to conservation and suggested, is there a way we could get them to pull in that fence just a little, maybe all the way around and,
Yeah.
allow access to that space even off of the Snake Hill Road end?
It's hard to overrule decisions in the past that are made and made under a different set of reasons. But yeah.
One other question. I know that you and Mark Wetzel and so forth have no control over that section of the road because it's a state road. But in a decade's time, between the development currently going in at Shaker Lane, the one that you're reviewing that's proposed, the 8 that just went in on this side of Mill Pond, Pingree Hill, and what's being finished with that, and now this, you're talking in a decade's time, roughly 250 homes being put in, with 4 or 5 access roads. And we're not even talking about Bennett's Brook and all the other things that have gone in the prior 20 years. But that's going in just under a mile stretch, about a half-mile stretch of road. And it's already, since I've lived there for 5 years, I've lived in that spot. We've had accidents right where they want to put on their preliminary plan, have the driveway for the house next to me. I had somebody come off the road a few years ago during the winter and right into that tree that's there. There's no street lights, there's no sidewalks, there's no shoulder on most of the road. I know the town can't change that, but can you recommend who we as residents in that area can go to now to get that process started, to get Mass DOT to, because it's a 45-mile-an-hour limit.
Again, a great point. We started discussing this before. Ultimately, Mark, I would go to Mark's office. I would talk to Dan.
Okay.
Dan or Mark. Dan and Mark. Yeah, we'll say things like it's a state-owned road. We'll all roll our eyes. And
yeah. They've mentioned it. I've discussed it last year with Mark, and he actually brought it up to the engineer that came out to look at the blocked culvert.
Yeah.
And pointed it out to him as the trucks roared by and almost knocked them over.
Yeah, and the challenge is we have a certain number of roads. We got a guy who's highly interested in how our roads work, but he's got a lot of work on his. He's got a lot on his plate, and that just gets worse when you're dealing with somebody down the
I'm wondering if there's somebody that we as residents can kind of drive crazy at the state level.
Yeah, I would honestly. I just don't know the person's name or how to get a hold of them.
I didn't know if maybe from the chip shots stuff that was going on a few years ago where that intersection was redone.
I don't know. Again, I would give Dan a call, or call directly to Mark's office, or call Dan, and I'll let them know you'll be calling, and they may have somebody you can contact, because it can be a challenge.
Yeah, it took me 2 years to get them out here for the culvert. It was only until Mark lit a fire under them. So. But I know the mail carrier is concerned. He's almost been clipped a few times for those 8 houses, and he was hit in front of my house.
Again, we can't take that on as a case. So I would work with the DPW and work with the try and find out if they can give you the name of somebody who drive crazy. You don't know anybody, do you? Not those? Okay.
Let me ask you this: with this going in,
thank you.
Where they're putting the road in for a cul-de-sac, will the school buses stop? Will they go down the cul-de-sac? Will that cul-de-sac be big enough?
That's done on a case-by-case basis. This decision is made by town and school transportation on a case-by-case basis, based on whether they can get in and get out. That's still theirs. And the turning radiuses in there would be 4 vehicles almost that large. So.
Because I know you have to do it for
that'll be again. We get the definitive plan. We can't know until then. Okay. Other discussion?
Yeah, we can get back.
Ken? Yes.
Conservation recommendation.
Yep.
Right. We're talking about, which I think is the important thing we're doing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess the first question I had is when we first talked about this with GPR was the urgency of getting this done to get to them. Is that step been taken, or are we not?
Yes, this has, my understanding from Joanne is that this has been shared with them, but they are in the process of developing the definitive plan.
Okay.
But
They basically told
this
us, I
has been
think, that they couldn't
communicated.
even get to the definitive plan unless they got this. And I thought this
Well,
was a
that's,
great piece of work.
they, yeah,
I wanna make sure
they
there's no
went ahead
misunderstanding.
and, from my understanding is they went ahead and started on it, even, before this was finalized, but they have since received this, and, since we have not received an application yet, it's my understanding that the plan is still in process.
Yeah, so the one thing I jotted down is the most valuable areas, most valuable
Right.
space
Right.
piece to it. When we were there, that there was a conversation going on, and most valuable land was being discussed as parking and driving versus open space.
Right.
That's how far apart it was on the second walkthrough. So I'm glad that this has come together because it helps the developer understand what the most valuable space is.
I wanted to thank Conservation for the work that they put in their agent, Joanne, obviously. A nice piece of work. So what I'd like to recommend is, and I don't know how everyone feels about this, but I'd like to let's take a stand on that last paragraph. We could as a board, and so that we're going to agree that, I'm recommending that the board agree that we are not going to allow the stormwater detention basins or detention basins to be allowed to be counted as part of the open space. I think there's a misunderstanding, there's nothing in print about it, so if we can establish it as a precedent, maybe that's enough, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We could codify that in the bylaw itself with the bylaw amendment. I'm thinking of tweaking the OSRD section anyhow, because there's a few deficiencies that they've identified. But we could codify that in there that, detention, retention basins cannot be counted towards the minimum required open space.
I just think it shows good faith in us in cooperating with the Conservation Commission. We're of the same mind, and that solidifies that mind to anyone coming before either board. Otherwise, if it's hanging, it's never really done. So I don't know how we approach that.
So, my recommendation is the board make a motion to make a positive finding on the Conservation Commission's conservation analysis, with special emphasis being on the last paragraph that the surface stormwater systems such as retention and detention basins should not be allowed to count towards the minimum required open space.
I'll take a motion to that.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
It's been moved to second. Is there any discussion on this?
Just want to make sure we have the right language. Do we necessarily now take this memorandum, Mark, and turn it into our recommendation, which I think is the next step? We take their information, but ultimately it becomes our agreement.
That's what I'm working on, right? I'm thinking through the process with the timelines and definitive subdivision and the conservation process. It's a little bit tricky. So I'd like a little bit more time to finalize that thought process of the timing of this. And certainly when we meet with the applicant for the definitive plan, we have to communicate this right up front.
But we don't have any information with them on that. So can I ask a question? Can we set the
Yes.
bar? Can you please take a few minutes between now and then, put together what you would recommend?
Yeah.
Language for that?
Right.
Circulate it, not for discussion, but please circulate it to the board.
Yes.
So that we can do our homework on the way in.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that was my plan for.
And I'll bravely share it with the Conservation Commissioner and find out what we should be doing now. So,
Ultimately it becomes our,
I don't
right.
disagree with
Yeah.
you. I mean,
Take
this
this
is pretty close. There's a couple sentences here that are particular to this plan. It doesn't make any sense, but this is actually fairly close if I think about it. So,
Right.
we won't get it perfect, but we should get it along the way, because I do agree that detention and retention should not be found as open space. I'm a little on the fence about naturally occurring water sources. Well, a pond is open space. I mean, this is another discussion altogether. And then whether it's a pond or a river is another discussion altogether. So let's pick off these and not get lost there. That's okay. Yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Diskin. So it's been moved that the board take some action on this. Mark had a fairly long-winded suggestion for a motion, a fairly intricate. Yeah, I know.
Good.
But are we accepting that? So it's moved. We're going to second?
We did second.
All in
Ken
favor?
seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. You got to keep me on
So
topic,
I
guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else about the conservation analysis? We're done. Jess, thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it. Moves us to our next item on the agenda, the preliminary subdivision continued preliminary subdivision review for Shaker Road, 23 lots, home development.
Okay, I wanted to pass this out. Mr. Chair, I have a few preparatory remarks that I just developed on this one too. I think I'll share with the applicant. If there aren't enough copies, I will give mine up after I read it.
Thanks.
Yeah, basically at the last meeting on this plan, which was a long time ago, one snowstorm and one lack of quorum ago. Basically, we directed the applicant to redesign the subdivision, the preliminary subdivision plan, because it was a sense of the board that they would not grant a waiver for the 1,025-foot long road, since the existing subdivision regulations have a 500-foot maximum road. I think in discussing the issue of preliminary plan review with other town planners, it seems to be that the basic intent of preliminary subdivision review is to give the applicant guidance as to how we would like to see the definitive plan come back to us. So with that in mind, I developed a few basic principles that I think could apply to any design that we would find more favorable than the initial design, which I would like to read as something that we would think about as we look at their presentation that will be forthcoming. So based on the conceptual subdivision layouts as presented at the February 25th meeting, the Ayer Planning Board makes the following recommendations on the preliminary subdivision plan known as Pond View at Shaker Mill Pond. And so I have some general concepts, some of which is based on a sneak preview of discussions about the conservation analysis for this property, which the Conservation Commission is still working on. So they have not formally submitted those to the Planning Board. But in talking with the Conservation Administrator, she told me a few things that will be in the conservation analysis that might help guide the Planning Board's decision this evening. So first of all, Planning Board recommends that the applicant take the following recommendations into account in developing the definitive subdivision plan for the property. The first bullet is house lots should be located outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer zone of the Shaker Mill Pond to the greatest extent possible. That is the dark red area that appears on the map on the second page.
Oh, you got another one?
Okay. Second bullet is, in order to protect the buffer zone of the Shaker Mill Pond, lots could be pushed to the south end of the parcel, where they previously did not show house lots. Intrusions into the buffer zone of the small interior wetland and into the stand of white pine woodland to the east of this wetland are more acceptable than placing house lots in closer proximity to Shaker Mill Pond. So if you look at the map of the conservation analysis that was done by Oxbow Associates, you'll see that there's a wetland in the center, the lower center of the property that's in red. Based on my conversation with the conservation administrator, she indicated that they would be supportive of moving some house lots into the buffer zone of that more isolated wetland that you see on the Harvard Town line, that they would be okay with pushing house lots or units into that red area, which is the highest conservation value based on vegetation. That they would rather see house lots pushed in that direction than closer to the pond. Also, the planning board also wants to remind the applicant that as there is no absolute minimum lot size in an OSRD, that it is possible to reduce some lot sizes in order to obtain a higher number of lots or units. It's also possible to seek a special permit from the ZBA to allow duplexes on some of the lots, which could also help to maximize the lot yield. This is sort of a give and take that we would have. The fourth point has to do with the length of the subdivision road. In my memo, staff report to the board prior to the meeting, I indicated that the planning board should consider if they would be willing to grant a waiver to exceed the 500-foot road length, with common driveways also being part of the discussion. It's my feeling that in order to allow the applicant to obtain a fair number of lots based on the calculations in the OSRD section of the bylaw, and to balance that against the conservation interest of the Conservation Commission in the town, that some give and take regarding the 500-foot road length might be warranted. Number two is, based on the direction that I gave Mr. Boardman, was to come up with a few very simple sketch plans that we could look at to see how we feel about those in comparison to the original plan. And that at the end of the evening, at the end of our discussion tonight, we might be able to decide on a sketch plan that more closely meets the objectives that we have that I just discussed. And so based on, how far we get, how far along we get tonight, we may decide that there's a concept that we like. We'll direct the applicant to, flesh that out for a definitive plan. Or if we can't come to an agreement, we may want to request an extension of the time period in which to act on the preliminary plan, since we lost the meeting due to the snowstorm. So that's just to get us thinking. I wanted to bring the Conservation Commission's preliminary ideas about the conservation analysis to the planning board so that we would have more information in which to make the best decision. So that's just food for thought, and thank you. I guess we'll
Good evening.
turn it over to the applicant's representatives.
I'm John Boardman from Places Associates. Here with me this evening is Dan and Joel Aho, the applicants for the project. I think Mark gave you some of the information I had planned on giving you, but I will pass this out. I think the first one you've seen before, it's just an aerial photo of the site. We've spent a lot of time talking with conservation, getting to know the site. It's got a pooping error on it, I apologize. I'd like to share this one. I think it's 2001. It's an aerial photo of the site, and you can see that a good portion of the site was clear cut, stripped, used for, looked like a construction yard basically. So there are important conservation values out there. The area down the middle of the site may not be that based on its historic use. So I think that's illustrated, and I'd like to share that one. The second page in this is the same thing that Mark gave you, which is the Oxbow report, which kind of emphasizes the same thing. The conservation values out here are pretty straightforward. They're the areas near the pond. I think we all agree. There is also that isolated wetland to the south of the property, as Mark said. While I have no proof of it, I believe it was basically where they went in and dug out all the gravel. There's a couple of holes on site like that. They dug out the gravel, they used it for various things, they never filled it back in, it started holding water. That one, sort of by a freak of the way it is classified as a wetland. There are two other ones on the site that are not, and that has all been approved by conservation in terms of what is and what isn't. So, does it have some value? Yes. I think conservation is correct in saying that if we're going to get close to a wetland, that would be the wetland to get closer to. So that made perfect sense to me. Third sheet is just a color up from the the preliminary filing that we gave you. This is what was submitted originally. Shows the roadway extending all the way through, providing access to the golf course. It shows roughly 6,000 square foot lots. And that's based on the size of the house and the requirement for 10-foot offsets to property lines. So basically, we started with the house that the developer wanted to put on the site, which is one of the smallest houses that he does regularly build. Then we put a box around it with a little bit of play. Obviously, I don't want to try and build everything 10.1 feet off the property line. We'll be in front of you 6 different times making changes. And they vary a little bit. Some of them are a little more, some of them a little bit less. In speaking with conservation over the past year, has it been, I think, they obviously wanted to see offsets to the lake. When we originally started talking, we honored the 25-foot buffer zone, which is in their guidance document for filing. They asked us to modify it and move up to the 50-foot buffer and try and honor keeping activity outside the 50-foot buffer. We honored that request. We made changes to the site. And as you can see, there are 2 orange lines that parallel the lake and then 2 orange lines that are around the southern wetland, we'll call it. The one closest is the 50 and the other one is the 100. So I think we've done a good job honoring that request to maintain that 50-foot offset to the lake in all cases, with the minor exception of the roadway where it accesses Shaker Lane. And that's actually farther away from the lake than the gravel roadway is now. So I look at that as an improvement. I think 2 lots impede on that 50-foot buffer zone to the southern wetland, but again, that area I think is a little less valuable than the mill pond itself. So that was what was submitted.
So this is still in the 100 foot that the conservation board recommended you on.
John, the question is,
The second line is the 100-foot buffer
so
zone.
these
correct.
are all sitting between the 50 and 100?
Correct.
Thank you.
And under state law, that's completely acceptable to work within the buffer zone. Simply under the conservation's jurisdiction to make sure that we do it correctly. And then we met a couple times, and weather's been going this way and that on us, and luckily the power's staying on tonight. Last meeting that we had a chance to talk, I think the biggest item that I came away with, and I think Mark reiterated that, was road length. And I had explained that one of my purposes here was to provide access to the golf course. They have legal access through this property already. We were trying to provide them with access that made sense, was paved, safe for fire, safe access to all the houses. And I think you guys asked what would a subdivision look like that was 500 feet roadway in length. And that, if you look at the last page, is something that we just submitted to Mark electronically, and I've given you a copy here. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to see that, oh, thank you. As Joanne from the Conservation Office aptly named it, the tentacle plan. I don't know whether that was because she liked it or not, but we'll run with that. The tentacle plan shows a 500-foot long cul-de-sac. It's actually, I think, 475 or something. It's too small for me to read on this sheet. To the beginning of the cul-de-sac, which is how your regulations define it, and then there's a standard cul-de-sac bulb that is the, quote, minimum listed in your regulations. Interestingly enough, you have no maximum. Then off of that are a number of common driveways that are 3 houses max. That is my understanding is allowed by zoning and approved by the building inspector regularly throughout town. Has a little different look, a little different feel to it in terms of what it looks like. We did slide the road a little further away from the lake, but that was to fit a couple more houses between the road and the lake near the entrance. In addition, looking at it, it's likely on those little 3 quadplexes might actually give us an opportunity to put some bigger homes on the ones that are turned 90 degrees because we've got some additional length there to fit. The dash line is roughly representing what would be the outer perimeter of the lots themselves. And I think
The black dash.
the black dash, yeah. Yep. And so, and in this layout, we have 14.3 acres of open space, and I think the original filing was 14.6, if I remember. So for all intents and purposes, we have an equal amount of open space on this layout as we did in the original submission. I reviewed it with my client. I don't think he was all that interested to start, but when we laid it out, he said, if this is what the planning board feels needs to be done, we could build it. So I'm kind of throwing it back at you a little bit in terms of if you think this is a better approach. Obviously, the point of a preliminary is to get direction from the planning board in terms of what you want this to look like at the end.
Comments?
How do you propose to generate the, there's no requirement for lot frontage, that's right? I mean, some of us are, yeah.
Correct, yes.
So we don't need to worry about that.
I mean, technically, the way it's written, it doesn't even sound like you need lot lines. In theory, you could just,
Well, it's, you know,
you could do EUAs
Yeah.
for exclusive use areas
right.
and,
It changes the rules in order to get the highest value property
right.
available to everybody on the property.
Right.
And sometimes you drive all the way around the property, which seems strange, but that's how it's,
Right.
you know.
Which you know makes sense if you do EUAs and that sort of thing, but then that doesn't make sense with the limitation on 3 units to the driveway, in my mind. It seems if you've got EUAs and you have a circulation plan with maybe a parking area, it's 8 or 9 lots, 8 or 9 spaces in a parking lot, some houses with garages, and the flexibility in an entire design process. This just looks like a subdivision that's changed, not something that's flexible in design.
Yeah, this seems to be very, very much along the lines of what we're seeing being built all over here out in Boston right now on all lines. Curbing the roads with similar materials, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, my initial impression upon seeing the tentacle plan, which first I want,
Excuse me, Mark, I'm sorry. Thank you. No, thank you for doing this. This is
right, I want to commend them for taking an effort to do a 500-foot road, but my concern, and taking into consideration the Conservation Commission's concern about the buffer zone for the pond, is that the way, at least the way that it's shown here with the long common driveways, it's pushing the houses in the area of disturbance closer to Shaker Mill Pond than in the original plan. So that's something that, I'm not so keen about. The other question has more to do with the marketability of long common driveways. The town, if the cul-de-sac road 500 feet becomes a town accepted road, the town would take on the road maintenance and the snow plowing and all that. Well and good. But the people who live in the common driveways would have to maintain those. So, that's not a town concern, but it's something that might be a concern of future residents who are in those houses. So, for that reason, when I was talking with John on the phone a week or 2 ago, I said, well, could you come up with something in between 500 foot and 1,000? This is, so we have a range of alternatives, not just 2, the 1,025 foot original plan and this. So I think something that's in between might give us a little more flexibility with design, make a little bit more sense from a design perspective, and protect more of the buffer zone for the ponds. So that was just my initial thought. I know I was saying maybe we could do a sketch paper exercise tonight or in the near future.
We talked about it a little bit. There seemed to me at the last meeting there was also a sort of a strong sentiment that it was either going to be no longer than 500 feet or it wasn't. It didn't sound like there was a whole lot of play, at least in one member's expression. I think somebody said there was no way they were going to approve a road longer than 500 feet. So I apologize, Mark. I didn't give you a 700 and an 850 or anything along those lines. Obviously, looking at this plan, I think you could take that cul-de-sac bulb and slide it to anywhere you wanted along the distance between there and the end, and we could make it work one way or another. You know, if it's going to be a situation where a waiver is not going to be approved, then I guess I'd look for the waiver that makes the most sense, providing access to the golf course as opposed to something in the middle.
May I ask a couple questions? So, I'm not trying to translate these areas from one color to another color. We've got the high-low medium, really easy to look at for guys like me. And then we've got the green, light green, yellow, for lack of another term. Is the light green ultimately going to be turf, or is it going to be left as wild?
The light green is essentially the disturbed area around the lots, and the dark green was intended to be undisturbed in the open space. That center open space should probably have been dark green. There's an open space area between the two end driveways.
Yeah, no, but I'm just curious. But the light green oftentimes becomes landscaped.
Yeah,
the intent in the future is not to have landscape. Wide open
the
landscape.
area interior to the lots would certainly have some form of landscaping
around the buildings. Exactly. I guess the question I'm asking is, and I don't want to pick on Pingree Hill.
No.
But if you go up there, you can see all the way across the entire subdivision.
Yep.
From one point to another point. I don't know if people are buying that or not these days. But I would just so this is just the light area is nothing more than we'll be working in this area.
Yep.
And it's included.
And again, it's a preliminary.
Calculations on the amount of non-porous surface compared to the other road?
I didn't do that, to be honest with
Off
you.
the cuff? Are we looking at twice as much impervious?
I would quickly agree that there's more impervious.
Okay.
I'm
not trying to put you on.
Don't know twice versus 1.5.
Yeah, but I'm just.
Yeah.
How long's a piece of string? I'm sorry, John.
No, that's
please
all right.
answer the question for me, but no, seriously. I thought octopus when I saw this. Actually, I thought Jules Verne.
There you go.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When I first saw it, and I do appreciate this. Not an easy lot. What's keeping the south side of the lot off the charts, off the table?
I don't think
20-25 foot grading.
we could certainly get to it. It would be more costly from construction. It was identified by conservation early on as an area that hadn't been clear cut in the past, and therefore might be more valuable wildlife.
Yeah,
the other advantage of that, it's sort of up high, and it provides a really nice buffer between us and the golf course parking lot. If we wanted to put a couple of
It was so cold that day we were up there. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time walking up that hill because it was just snowed
I mean, there's nothing that says you couldn't eat a couple of units into the hillside at the bottom, make them dry under, and utilize some of the space while still maintaining the top.
You'd have to punch through down below.
I mean,
down here somewhere.
Mark talked about other concepts. I've got a folder full of them from when this started. Everything from 10 lots on a subdivision to 96 on a 40B. 25s, 15s, 32s, all different unit numbers if you want to worry about what the counts are. But they're all different looks, oversized cul-de-sacs, looping cul-de-sacs, several different OSRDs. So we spent a lot of time looking at what we wanted to build. Spent a lot of time talking with Mark and Joanne about what their interests were. And that's how we got to the plan we submitted.
The original plan.
Yep.
I'm Dan Arnold. The first design, the reason we designed it that way was we thought it was a clean look right across, served the purpose for the golf course to access through, kept everything relatively clean, straight, lots were consistent pretty much, and the concern I have about this is more so is that the long common drives are a little bit more challenging as far as fire or whatever else. So they work, but they're just, some of them are pretty long. It works, but does push us a little closer, it makes us a little tighter. And I think the design of the other, if we were able to get a waiver, needed this is so much cleaner meter.
I have a question. I don't know if it's, do I have to formally address it?
Please don't. No, chair's lost.
So in the discussion, we've talked about compromises to the length of the road. So you have a law, it's 500, you ask consideration for a waiver. And I've also seen ideas about compromises and adjustments on the buffer. But what remains fixed is the number of lots or the number of units. And I want to know, why is that a fixed value and everything else is fungible?
It's not, we have up to 33 lots.
33 units.
Or 33
Up to
lots.
33 units,
So
yep.
actually, we've actually undercut that.
I think Jonathan's point is, if I speak, is we were 22 before, we're 22 now. Is really what it comes down to. And I think the exercise is we got this now. We got this here now. Let's let's put them in a different. What would it be in a different arrangement? What would a different arrangement look like for the same number?
Well, and I wouldn't say that the number of units is static. My first plan that I showed to Joanne and to Mark was 42. Then we did some clarifications on what counted for areas, what didn't count for areas. They made changes to the bylaw actually to result of changes in the calculations. And our total number went from the 42 to the 33. Basically, the way your regulation is written, I can use that space that I've shown on that plan as lots however I want to develop. If I want to turn these units 90 degrees, face all the garages, I'm pretty sure I can get to 33 in that same space. So, but that's not what we want to build. We don't think it'll look nice. It'll be a row of garage doors all the way down the road. And it'll look like townhouses in
The two largest developers in the country.
Right.
Thank you for not being another vinyl village on a curving road with a single
We
arterial.
can do more, I said, yeah, but I don't want them to look like it.
No, and I think we're all probably sitting here trying to figure out what's the high value of the land, because that's really what's become the that's the resource here.
Yep. And I'll point out that we've got stormwater management shown on a parcel up near the front of the road that has not been counted as the open space. We're also showing stormwater management infiltration under the cul-de-sac so that it again is not in the open space, trying to meet the ideas that Joanne had expressed early on in her interest in the project and how she felt it should look, even though it wasn't clear in your regulations. So we've been working hard and trying to do everything that everybody's asked. And this is where we ended up, and now we're looking for your input so that we can go to the next step.
I work every day with a property in Wayland that is a lot like this. It was laid out that way because it was the only way to use the land in the conservation area. Built in the 70s. We've now got a problem. We now have a situation where conservation area has increased. And it's simply increased because the town of Weston next door has allowed so much building that all the water that used to be absorbed up below has now changed the status of it. The good news is there's not basements everywhere on this property. But I'm also thinking about, so the value is trying to figure out where that is. And I was looking at my phone because I was trying to pull up an aerial view of it. It's like, I'm happy to send you, John, the address. It's tenements. I hadn't seen it until I saw this. Worked on it for 7 years. Been working on it for 7 years, and it's singles and some attached. But that's 75 unit. The total acre is 22 here.
Yeah,
roughly.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think mine over there. I think the one over there I work with, the total acreage that's developed is about 70 acres. It's 75 or 80 units exactly. I forgot, but the same thing. But some of them, you're standing in the kitchen looking right at the place next door, or across the street. Something you're going to try and avoid, I imagine, because these are single families, not a condominium complex.
Right.
So they come with there's a push.
Well, that's the feel of it.
Yeah, there's a give and take on it.
We did one concept that was more of a condominium complex feel.
Yeah.
With units backing up against each other and that kind of stuff, and that wasn't something we were interested in pursuing.
Yeah, actually, this is yeah, exactly. So, go ahead. Yeah, because I actually, excuse me, here for a second. I get that the bulb is important to have here. I get that the road is important to have to the golf course. Without thinking about without not ignoring, Mr. Aho, I don't. You say your first name was?
Daniel.
Daniel, hi. I'm Jeff Tillotson, by the way. Just like it's nice to meet you. Could the golf course be served by a road off a common driveway? And I understand the maintenance piece to that. Okay, but I'm looking at the technical one, and I'm looking at if this whole arc came down, this road disappeared, and we had some way to get in from there, would the bulb have to move a lot? I don't know. The boulder's there. See, trying to figure out, that boulder would be awesome if you could see it.
If you could.
I like that boulder's a great feature of the land.
It's unique.
Right.
You know, right now it's going to be seen by these guys if we let it go back to vegetation. So, but if this whole arc curved down away from the pond, is that something that could be used? I'm not the designer, but this is
Right.
I mean,
Well, I think Mark's statement in his initial thing of trying to increase offsets to the lake is a goal, and
Yeah.
I understand that goal. And as we move, if we have a consensus on how to move forward, that can be part of what we do as we move forward. Is can we gain 5 feet here? Can we gain 15 feet there? If I could design the entire site outside the 100-foot buffer zone, I would, because then it would be a one less set of permits that I'd have to deal with, one less set of restrictions, and it would be easier for everybody. But unfortunately, those sites don't exist anymore that have large open spaces with no wetlands involved. Those were all developed back in the 80s. The easy ones are gone.
yeah, and which is why we're sitting here.
Yeah. So I can accept that as a goal. Yeah. Can we slide stuff forward? Can we try and get stuff out of buffer zones as much as possible? Certainly. It saves time and money.
Right, yeah, Mr. Chair, I think, in my opinion, that this technical plan could work, and it would work better if, as you said, the long common driveway was shortened and brought to the south a little bit more. That would allow for a greater non-disturbance area in the wetland buffer zone along the pond, result in less need to maintain the common driveways and all the attendant issues of plowing and all that. I think some variation on this could work. I would personally like to see shorter common driveways that would achieve two objectives. One is to make it easier for the residents and preserve more open space along the pond. And as long as the golf course is okay with an arrangement of a driveway coming off of the cul-de-sac, I don't see why that would be a problem.
Has anybody ever been able to contact the golf course in any way, shape, or form?
We've spoken to them a couple of times.
Are you finding them willing to play?
He's very difficult to deal with as far as, he just says, I don't have a problem with the subdivision, but, you gotta make sure I'm gonna access through there. I can have my access through there.
That's what we want to maintain.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to maintain the access.
He doesn't care if it goes up high or down low. I mean,
Yeah.
I prefer it to stay
Yeah.
down here, but
Yeah.
if he has an access here, that if he had to revamp something to do it.
He'd have to move one of his borrow piles, but
His trash trucks down the common driveway and different things, and early in the mornings.
I couldn't
The
get.
road's one thing.
I couldn't get a feeling for what he uses that road for. I thought that road was
It's a
just.
maintenance road.
I understand it's a maintenance road,
The maintenance
but
road.
I can't see a 30-yard trash truck going down that road.
He does.
That's how he.
With those puddles and with the way it's set up
Well,
like
I don't
that?
know if he's doing it now because it's probably shut down for the winter.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, okay.
I think he sends the UPS guy in the back way and the FedEx truck the back way and probably the Bud Light truck. So that you you don't see all that in the fancy parking lot.
So that's why we said if we had a main road running through, it'd be the least amount of.
That's information I didn't have. 'Cause
Yeah,
I mean, I drove down that road. That's worse than roads on Nantucket that are, seriously.
And then if you had a beautiful road going to the property, then those trash trucks and delivery trucks would be on the roadway, not on Collins Drive, which, of course, on Collins Drive, what's the comment of the three people that own it that said, hey, this road just got destroyed? Who's liable to pay it? The golf course guy. I ain't paying it.
So now I understand why the spur road was up like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to keep it separate from any individual homeowner.
Is
The
it?
only way I'm going to find out is to ask the question.
No,
So,
no.
and the other thing I was looking at is common driveways. So, a common driveway would be from the cul-de-sac to the entranceway to one of the triplexes, Mark.
Yes.
But cul-de-sac road comes off and then branches at that point. That would be a common driveway from the cul-de-sac to where it branches off, which we couldn't do. It's hard to do this in the air, guys. I'm sorry.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm not sure that your regulations are clear on that. I think if you read your OSRD, it says that an access approved by the planning board. I don't think it makes any limitation on the number of units.
I think that was the question. Yeah.
If it was a parking lot, could you only have 3 cars go into the parking lot? And there's nothing that says you can't do parking lots to serve the number of dwelling units. I'll stop using the word lot. That's there. So maybe that's a clarification that needs to be made going forward on these, along with no detention basins in the open space and that kind of stuff. I realize you guys are early on in this process.
If I have this road here and they're running all their stuff down here, I surely don't want to put the house here where they're going to be running through their backyard.
Right.
But what I was thinking is the road there, you can still have a long driveway out to something. You can still get some separation through trees and vegetation. Sorry, Julie.
Ken had some things he was going to share a while
I'm
back.
waiting for you, that's all.
Go ahead, Ken.
First of all, the gentleman in the back, I think he's tired. He leaned down. Oh, he didn't like one of the comments, which I think is what happened.
I can't see him. He's behind his chair.
I got a headache, but that was before the comments.
The comment that was just made, actually, for the developer, may have put a negative light on this for me. And that was the urgency of that road to the golf course being of a commercial nature is now a concern to me, because I'm not sure that I like the idea of approving a project that is going to generate that kind of commercial traffic down a street that's clearly a small, almost a private street.
There's no difference between that and any public street.
Well, this isn't really a public street. It's a private, in essence, it's right at this point in time. But let me go back to the 500-foot number.
Sure.
And part of the concern for that is that this piece of land is located, not just, these houses aren't just 500 feet down this road, but many thousands of feet down Shaker Road to the end of the project. So it's really a long ways in there. So to aggravate that more by putting more distance, it's a concern, that's all I'm saying. Because it's a unique piece of property. I'd like to ask you one question over the Ahos, which I think is important, if you don't mind. What's the minimum, what's the smallest number of units you could build in there to make it work? Have you thought about that?
Yeah,
Since
basically, if you are trying to make any money on it, you're gonna have to do somewhat around those same amount of units, because by the time you develop it, you bring the water and sewer in, you do all your infrastructure and everything else, it just doesn't really work.
So you think it needs to be 23 odd units, 20, 23, 22?
I mean, personally, I think, the minimum you could probably get by with is 20, but I'm just using it, huh?
What relevance is what the leash?
Well, it does, because if you plan the land, what I'm getting at is, I want to go over this, that board was bigger. Part of the concern when we developed the OSRD was that the contiguous open space we typically, and when we looked at these proposals we looked at, the thought process we had was that construction would be somewhat at the beginning of the site. And then OSRD, the open space that it would retain would be contiguous in the back of the site, so development would come towards the front of the site. This is a pinch site in the front. So that throws off that concept because you can't get your unit density down here and keep open space out here. So the idea of keeping contiguous open space was part of the process of the OSRD, and therefore saying, squeeze it in down here, put as many units as you want towards the front. But we may not have that option, especially with the road. So I'm trying to give John an idea. This was, I believe, part of the concept that we talked about, was to minimize all the work by bringing the development towards the front of the property.
Which actually becomes a benefit to the developer,
Right.
because your infrastructure costs
Reduces
should not be
all
as
your
high.
Development costs,
Well, yeah, if you pull it forward like that, then basically the problem is you don't have the room. I mean, if you're gonna do.
Exactly.
so now you
Given
have
the
to
way
do
this
it.
lot lays out, yeah.
We're gonna have to put
This
those
is,
grass
it's a slice of pie, basically, and you wanna get yourself into a piece of pie you wanna
What the
use.
thought process was, knowing full well that it doesn't work here, because you're trying to get between two wetlands. Plus, I mean, this unit down here is like dangling into the wetlands.
Yeah,
The first couple,
it's right in there.
I mean, that's not gonna work. The first plan had them on.
Right, the other
on that side
plan,
of the street.
the other plan worked, but also if you look at it on the other plan, I mean, like on this plan, it's very tight
Yeah,
backyard.
because you get two units there.
We're
Before you have one.
squeezed here.
Well, that's for the guy who doesn't wanna cut his grass.
So,
Yeah.
Well, and I may have done Dan a little bit of a disservice here, and I'm really only showing the area that we're developing. And there's 14 acres of open space that includes the entire pond, portions of the bank, all the way around the right, all the way around 2A. So there is a rather large, important piece of contiguous open space on this site, and it's not shown on that plan. So you've got to go back to the yellow plan.
Yeah, I've got it.
That shows the whole piece and not just the area we're developing. So.
but in essence, the property, the way, I mean, these guys know as well as I do, the way the property lines up, that you're not gonna be able to build in those places anyway. You're gonna be, basically where you can put construction is where you're showing. You can't get up this steep slope to this other piece of open space and so on and so forth. So, I mean, what I was trying to get at is if this plan almost would work, if it would be less 6 units, the last 6 units. You took those 6 units out and then moved those other 6, made them premium, more expensive homes, whatever you want to call it.
Split them off to the
This
southern
group
part.
went away. This tip over this way a little bit. Maybe you could then, get this to work, get closer to the county. You wouldn't be working in all of this buffer zone over here, and you'd have a continuous piece of land, so, but I don't know if you can get away with it. Down here,
So pretty soon you're down here.
12,000 square feet, 100 feet frontage.
Yeah. It's hard to translate it into something on SRD. That's okay. He's asking me the types of units we could put in there.
Or maybe go back to the first
Well,
one.
this is what I was trying to get at, is take the arc. I mean, your software would do it really nicely. Grab the pins and pull it around.
Let me tell you my thoughts on this original design.
Yeah, okay.
The original design, when we came to Johnson, you would have 33 units. And I said, okay, so we could squeeze these in, do this, and meet compliance with whatever, and it has this area set, and so on and so forth. So this is the area that we can work within. And I said, no, I would rather go in with a subdivision that basically is clean, neat, and looks orderly, that the planning board may appreciate, because it's one of your first PUDs in town, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
So that's why I put this out. If I had thought we were gonna get resistance, I would have probably come in with the 33, and then worked back from there.
We would got here.
Which is probably what we
And
should
then
have
we
done.
would have got back to this number, and you'd have said, wow, we're happy. But I didn't. So I thought we came in with a nice clean subdivision, basically following what I felt, other than the waiver for the length of the road, I don't see why that doesn't work great. I thought it looks fantastic. But so when John told me, no, we can't do a 1,000-foot road, or at least doesn't believe we can, then he was drawing it up, and I looked at it and I said, well, it works it's not my favorite design by any means, and it's not really what I want, but if we have to go that route, we have to go that route, but it's,
I'm sorry, John, had you spoken with, Jesse's gonna, daggers at me, the lesser value of the high value areas being utilized? At that part, the southern portion here, I guess Mark had spoken that this is, of the two red areas, this is the least valuable, if I'm correct?
Correct.
Using some of this area?
Well, and that's what the second plan, I've basically jammed the cul-de-sac right up against the end of it.
Got it, okay.
So,
I just didn't know what the sequence of events was.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I understood that from the beginning, that was a hole somebody had dug that filled with water, and being an engineer, that's not as high value as the pond that I'm looking over my left shoulder at. So, I think that's fairly obvious standing on the site.
Yeah.
I mean, there's piles of debris and dumpsters and packing crates in and around that area, so,
Just don't find them as artifacts.
no, yes, they're all fairly new. Yeah.
So your initial, so we start out this with, again, thank you, and I appreciate this is frustrating. I do appreciate this is frustrating, I'm sorry. It's rare that I'm on the other end of that frustration. Right. So, trying to make it as unfrustrating as possible.
I just want to let you know where I came from.
Yeah, no, it's helpful because, if you look at this, quite honestly, remove the pond, this is a neighborhood in any town inside of 190 now. An acceptable, beautiful neighborhood, and that's not a bad thing. It's the pressures of the pond, the pressures of the space, and the pressures of the golf club. And I'm fascinated to find that the golf club defines this as his back driveway. And now, have you been the owner of this property for a long time?
No.
So that agreement was pre-existing to your ownership of the property.
Way back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's been there for a long time.
Okay. When did the golf club get built?
25 years ago.
Wow.
Early 80s?
I was playing a lot of golf back then. I'm surprised I didn't play out here
Yeah.
because it's not that far. Okay. We're at that point where we get to say, what's the next step? This has been helpful for me in understanding the thought process on it. It really has. I appreciate it. It was that cold. It was cold that day.
Yeah, it was
almost like cold again tonight.
John was very, very gracious to meet us early in the morning. We'd already been on a walk by the time we got there. Yeah, and it wasn't far enough between the two for the cars to warm up again. So,
The road really already exists.
I know.
It's already there.
Yeah.
We're not really altering hardly anything, all changing a few grades here and there. And
What kind of road are you going to put on there? What's it going to be eventually? Acceptable road to the town eventually?
Yeah, that would be the intent. We asked for a waiver down to a 20-foot road width, but the intent would be a public roadway accepted by the town, plowed by the town. I don't know how you guys are handling stormwater management, maintenance in Ayer, and whether you guys are doing homeowners associations or whether the town is taking it
Will
on.
this ultimately be an HOA at some point? Is there plans for that kind of stuff in the
Ultimately
HOA?
what?
So, my understanding, and I'm going to speak out, if I speak out of turn, I'm sorry, but professionally, I deal with condos. And condos that ignore their site work can get in trouble. And I know that there's feelings here in town that the site work should be taken care of by the guy who really needs to rely on it for our aquifer. So I believe DPW has stepped up and said on new projects, we'll do the site, we'll do the cleaning of the detentions, retentions, we'll cut them, we'll make sure they're working right, we'll make sure that the drainage is all working properly, because otherwise the problems we end up with are much more expensive.
To be honest, it seems to
So
vary
that's a quick
from town to town.
It does. Different DPWs do different things for different reasons, but exactly.
you know, on this original plan, the idea was to actually not have any type of an association, condo association.
That's it, yeah.
Other than maybe whether they wanted to have something for planting out front or something. But basically, that's why they're all individualized lots.
Kind of like Crabtree over there, yeah. But as soon as I see something like this, there's going to have to be some agreement on how to get on. Not every triplex is going to have a guy with a plow.
Right.
You know, or a guy with a bigger riding lawnmower. You know, So that introduces that to a certain extent where you have some sort of HOA.
And DPW has looked at the plan and made some comments and actually made some comments on how they thought drainage should be handled, and maybe that's based on their thinking of maintenance.
I have an address you can look at. Google Earth it. I can't think of the address right now, but I'll give it to you, Chuck. If you remind Mark, I'll get it to you. Because large national developer just did the reverse of this.
They all look the same after a certain number of years.
I'm involved with over 100 properties. It's just hard to remember what they are day to day. Any other questions from the board? I'm sorry to. I appreciate this, and I think the extra road's a bummer, and I understand why. Did not know that there were. Last thing you want is an empty UPS truck going through there first thing in the morning. They make a lot of noise down a dirt road. Yep. Other questions? Other topics? What's the next step?
Well, first of all, I guess the board should, reconsider the 500-foot road length. Is that an absolute maximum that you would like to see, that there'll be no deviation from? Second would be direction on the length of the common driveways. It's my feeling as a planner that things should be pulled to the south. That would shorten the driveways and potentially increase the protected buffer zone along Shaker Mill Pond itself. One thing I liked about the first plan that we saw, was that, they were using the existing road that, if you could call it, is the basis for most of the subdivision road, even though it greatly exceeded the 500 feet. I thought that, with proper conditioning and proper findings, we could make it clear that that wasn't setting a precedent that we would have to approve 1,000-foot roads.
Well, I think you guys came to that conclusion a few minutes ago when you said this is a unique site. You can't pull it all to the front because it's pie-shaped and because of the lake. Those are all unique features of this site that drive the need for the roadway. And that wasn't even me saying that. That was you guys working to that.
Pretty much we're staying within the confines of the original cleared area. There might be a little over,
Which is why I keep throwing that front picture to you.
There's a lot of work in the buffer zone that
Yep, there is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well,
Right.
the count is, the thing is unfortunate from our standpoint is that if we never made a change to the OSRD, how many units would we get here? 4. On the standard subdivision plan, 500-foot road. with-
You mean if we were still
Yeah, 10.
dealing with
That's like
standard
10
subdivisions?
under the
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you'd be dealing with homes twice the size of what's shown on this plan.
Right.
But
You'd
there's
end
not
up-
large-
You'd be shooting for high-end lakefront.
Right.
but
Yeah,
Whole
right.
different game.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as much
Docks and
natural
streets.
preservation,
Well, it would
you'd
be
have.
automatic because you couldn't get more than 10 lots in it, so you're getting.
But there's no
no, you'd
limitation
have-
on what I can clear in the
You'd
buffer
have
zone.
bigger lots, right.
You have no local bylaw for, no local wetlands bylaw.
Right,
So
but you still have
there
to-
is no-
We don't have a
Right.
bylaw, but the WPA, the act itself, has enough restrictions in it, so our conservation commission thinks about how they want.
Oh, agreed, but I can
So we don't need
certainly,
a wetland bylaw to have
but
control.
I'm allowed to work in the buffer zone, I'm allowed to clear in the buffer zone. I mean, I could be allowed, each lot could be allowed to clear a path down to the lake to have an area and access to the lake. Nobody's gonna be happy about it, but it would be approved eventually, whether through the Conservation Commission or through the state.
I guess I'm gonna make one final comment.
No,
That's it. I'll go back to you guys after that, but if you went back, I mean, there's no question that the first 600 or 700 feet of the road of the first plan are superior than the first 500 feet of the second plan.
Yep.
There's no question about it, because you're further out. And the second plan brings up a lot of other questions about common driveways and whatnot. But if there's a way to, I'm looking at the boulder as like the center point of this problem, in the wetlands, of course. I'm sure you don't want to blast that boulder out of there.
But,
That's a good plan.
I keep working around it.
It's almost as though if there were a cul-de-sac that started at a 750 mile marker and it curved around the boulder, then you just have, another, I don't know, 3 units at the end, you'd lose a few units. But you'd end up with.
Put the boulder in the center of the cul-de-sac, is that what you're
No,
saying?
I'm just saying, I'd say leave the road where it is, but start the cul-de-sac there.
Which plan are you looking at? You're looking at
The original plan.
Yep, just helps me to follow along, that's all.
So the first 750 feet roughly gets to the boulder. You drew a cul-de-sac there at the end, starting at 750. You would have to concede to 750. And then you might have room for like another 3 houses or 4 houses around the cul-de-sac.
But then where do I break across for the, I still have to either get to this
Right,
point
it's-
right here.
Right.
The very end, well, same as the original plan. There'd be a break point through the cul-de-sac out to the original road.
You're just moving where the circle
I'm
is.
just moving the circle forward to the 250 feet forward, basically. Or 300 feet forward, 250 feet forward, pulling it down the road. And then.
But then the road continues on the other side of the cul-de-sac.
It continues, it breaks off just like it's shown on the original plan.
Yeah, the driveway.
The
so to
driveway
speak,
to the golf, I'll call it a
course.
driveway to the golf course, rather than a
Sure.
road to the golf course. The road would end at the 750 of the cul-de-sac.
Well, see, the idea, if you moved it to a 750-foot road, a road, just hypothetically, the idea would be to build around the ball, not to actually run it through there for access, because now you.
I know that, but you'd leave one
Right.
point through it, just
But
like you
you
did on
can't
the
really
original
build
plan.
around it if you have to leave an access for them to get through there. And now you're gonna lose a lot coming up, you're gonna have to cut through here somewhere to get back to this point. Up here or something, I'm not sure. I mean,
I think so. I'm not using that
yeah.
drawing, Dan.
So I'm gonna regulate,
Yeah.
and not, and it's not gonna be not fascinated with this. I have a feeling we've softened on the no waiver rule. I think if we can take anything, if we can take anything away from this tonight, I think we've softened on the no waiver rule. Okay. Appreciate that you're putting up with the patience with doing this because we actually. I've been doing this not a long time, but we've wavered everything all the way through, and it comes back and bites us in the behind, and so we want to make sure that doesn't work. And what's happening is we're seeing it because almost every lot we're dealing with now is not a triangular lot or a rectangle or something like that, or it has features like that. We're pushing now into the area in town that's of high conservation value. So I appreciate that. Mark, do you have enough feeling for the way the board is on this about working forward with John?
Well,
Not that I'm putting it on your shoulders, but-
there are basically 2 options. One is the planning board requests an extension of the applicant to try to work it out in more detail to make sure that we're all satisfied.
Mhm.
Or we could close the discussion on the preliminary plan tonight and give them some direction either on a slightly increased road length, which may give them more flexibility in the placement of lots. I would also like to see, and if we do make a motion to close the discussion this evening, that the buffer zone to the Shaker Mill Pond be preserved as much as possible. That would require the common driveways on the technical plan to be shorter.
I think,
But that's why I
adjust it south if it's
Yeah.
possible.
Like that, man.
Technical plan?
right.
Thank Joanne.
You are so wrapped up in this, man. Have you figured it out yet?
Yes.
Just like you're getting out. Okay.
I think no matter what, we could, I think they have enough direction of what we would like to see that they will come back with a definitive plan that we would either have to work a little bit more in the beginning phases of that to come up with something to our liking, or we could push a little bit here to continue for one more meeting if we think that will get us a better plan and give them a little more time to work out a third concept. Personally, I would like that because, it's kind of hard to discuss these concepts of 750-foot road with a different access to the golf course and, how would that translate to the buffer zone for the pond?
Yeah.
I would like to actually see a third iteration. personally.
But we're also not the design piece.
No, I know we're not.
We're ultimately not the ones that have to make the decisions to do this, why they're gonna do stuff like that. Right, Ken?
If I can comment on that, I'm not necessarily against coming up with a conceptual plan for 750, but if we're gonna have a waiver on the road, because it's gonna be longer than 500 feet, then whether we go 750 or 1,000 feet, that's clean and cut and wide enough versus longer common drives, I just think it's so much needed. That's my personal feeling. I mean, I'm not saying you agree or disagree, but we could definitely draw some 750 road, try it, bring it back to you, and leave it open for another 2 weeks to whatever you need. I'm not sure when you need.
Yeah, we meet 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, March 12th.
It'll seem very fast because of the way it's been the last month or so.
John, do you have
Thank
any
you.
comments? I see you smirking.
No, I was just laughing at chemical plant. Everybody's picked up on that. I think it's great.
But I would like to leave this concept open.
Yeah.
Possibility of this. I just think it's just so
I-
clean and cut.
Yeah, I mean, as an individual, not the acting chair right now, it's clean as cut, but what if we can bring it away from the high value land around the pond a little bit? Ultimately, the people living there, you're gonna have to excuse me for a minute. I manage properties, as you know, we've had a windstorm all day long. But just the whole shift down a little bit to maintain more of the value here. Let me see these for messages, good calling.
I guess the only thing I would comment on that is where I shift this. I mean, the beginning of my road on this first plan is fixed. The end of my road is fixed because that's where the golf course needs to go. I could shift that turnaround circle to any point along that road, and it's going to change that number on your road length. For the majority of the road, you're still going to be building units in the same place. Simply where the cul-de-sac is, we're going to end up having to make some adjustments. So moving the cul-de-sac, I don't think is going to make any major change to the fact that I'm maintaining that 50-foot buffer zone. I don't see that making a dramatic difference in increasing beyond the 50. And I think we've done a good job to maintain the 50. I think that's a big step.
The first 700 feet or so of the road is better on the first concept plan as far as intrusion to the wetlands in the
To
second.
be honest, we tried to put together the best plan that we could, take into account what everybody was asking us to do, and we didn't put any units on the first, 400 feet on the left-hand side, because it's too close to the lake. Okay, that's just common sense.
So when you get to the other objection that I thought you guys would have as developers was that those last few houses are so close to that other building. I don't know if anyone would live out there.
Fence across here anyways, so.
I know that, but practically speaking, there's going to be noise from machines, there's cars going up and down. There's a lot of things you can't control.
So
So
we
by
put
moving
the
that road,
garages
you
on,
sacrifice-
on this side of it, so your noise level over here
But-
isn't gonna be as
If you
dramatic.
sacrifice a few units and just leave a driveway for them to use down to their property, you move the houses down the street, you may end up with a better overall.
Because this particular lot here isn't as close as you think, because the shed is over here, okay? So being a garage on this side, this backyard is actually quite private, because that's all wood space.
That's all woods, and it's actually.
So the only one that would really have more of an obstruction for noise, with the fence line here, is maybe this one here that may catch up, but it's
I
really
think the
more.
building corner's actually on that plan, Dan. If you look closely.
I'm looking at that guy's right next to the barn. That's the angle. This unit is sitting
Yep.
right next to the barn.
But pretty much everything is done on this side, so you're not, this is your garage, this is your backyard, you're kind of directing up this way.
But that's a sales issue.
It's a sales issue.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's a planning issue.
Well, you don't want phone calls at the end of the day that the golf course is.
It's a noise issue.
Too noisy for that neighbor.
It's a diesel fuel, or it could be anything, they're storing materials there.
But when you get smaller lots and
Okay.
smaller pieces of land, you get to know your neighbors better.
You know that don't eat.
Okay, guys.
Can't even say seconded without getting eaten.
Sorry.
I know.
And Weston Fire needed to talk to me.
It's not good.
Trees it down. It's just they have an upset person who doesn't like the fact that the panel's beeping all night long. That's it. It's just gonna have to be. Okay. So
We lost Mark, that's all.
he'll be right back.
I guess we have to ask the applicant if they give us an
Did
extension.
you want to come back in 2 weeks for one more shot, or do you want to ask
Can't
them
we-
to give us?
I mean, can't we just fill in the blanks on this one with what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, your
And then it says if
recommendations
possible.
that Mark has, I mean, everyone's saying 750, okay.
So it's
With the
750
and
like,
forward, and then you pick a number of that, and at the end, it says,
if possible.
I think we want those guys to come back to show us something other than us just going to.
Those
To
to Jesse.
John has to figure it out.
Okay.
Let the designer figure it out. Let the engineer figure out if it's gonna work or not. Okay.
Isn't that what you said? If possible. Let's
Yeah,
do the
if possible.
proposed, if possible, and then if it's not
most
possible.
definitive, and if you can, that's it.
How did I lose that?
Yeah.
Oh, this thing.
It was in the rest.
I'm sorry, when I stepped out for a second.
Oh, and I just
I
made
missed-
the
I
votes,
missed
but
what
Oh,
you
they
said.
approved it while you were gone.
He doesn't get the vote anyway.
Yeah, I
So
don't get to vote.
Mark, pull up your draft recommendations, okay? Because I think these are in pretty good shape. I think these are pretty good, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think this is language.
Well, I
we're
don't
gonna probably-
particularly like the 100.
The first one's impossible. The first one's impossible.
Well, you
Okay.
Well-
There's going to be a town. There's going to be a white
the
wetlands
greatest-
bylaw
to the
soon.
greatest
unfortunately.
extent reasonable, which is
So-
what you
No, no,
have.
I understand that.
Which you pretty much have.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
You
what
really
we got,
supported that.
what Julie is saying is we need to fill in the underlines,
Fill in the
okay?
blanks, yes.
Where it becomes should the post should not exceed 750 feet in length with common driveways not to exceed. I have no idea how long are those driveways, John. I don't think we have the information, man. Yeah.
500.
There, yeah, I mean,
Well, you don't want to, you don't want to.
I know.
the longest one's 500, because
So you would say 300.
Yeah.
you 500 for road to
So
get
300,
back there.
It's
It's no different than the total length of the road right now.
No, so I say 300.
Well, as a piece of information, we're working on a new set of subdivision regulations for all subdivisions.
Yep.
Which is, the ones that are in town now go back to the 80s,
Mhm.
so they're way out of date. And the concept we're using is to allow common driveways that would be half the length of the maximum length of the road in order
And
to
allow
keep
more than 3 units
proportionality.
on them? You're still gonna
Three.
do three
Yeah,
three
three.
dwelling units?
Three
Okay.
is what's allowed in the bylaw.
Yeah, okay.
So if we allow a 750-foot road via waiver, then half of that would be the maximum driveway length to keep the proportionality. We don't have to actually set a driveway length here in the motion, or in the findings. It's just, when I saw the plan, with the technical plan, so to speak, I was a little concerned about how long those driveways were in relation to the road. They're just about as long as the road.
Length versus road, I see that as privacy versus non-privacy. I see plowing them.
All right.
Yeah, but that's,
Okay.
I'm a,
If you don't have a problem with that, we could just delete the whole common driveway section of that bullet.
Do we need a 2 weeks, or do you want to ask them to come back with definitive?
No, I'd like them to come back with one.
Make a motion?
Okay.
Well, let's get their attention, and then
Yeah.
we're thinking through what the next steps will be.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well,
I'd like to make a motion that we ask the applicant if they would extend for 2 more weeks of the next planning board meeting the submission of another concept plan for us to review.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I just think we had enough ideas tonight to make it pretty more confusing. And we need clarification on this. So we go
I
forward.
like what Mark's talking about, and we're talking about the ideas of maximizing offsets,
I think
minimizing common driveway lengths, and
you're going to be
I mean, I don't really care, I don't think, at the end of the day, whether it's 750 feet or 850 feet or 650 feet.
I don't know that we're going to solve the problem for everything in the future, but we're going to solve the problem for this one.
Right.
And move
That's
forward.
where your 750 would end up.
Exactly,
Just
yeah.
Through the circle line. It gets you just past the boulder.
Yeah.
Probably offset it a little bit this way so that the lots on the far side don't get closer to the lake. You end up bringing some of those lower units. So maybe you offset the cul-de-sac like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
These units stay the same. This unit comes back here, like that. You continue your roadway through.
That was my thought.
Now,
And you could even put one or two off the back.
the ones with that longer driveways going in, that way it brings them back off the road another 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
Truck traffic's and that stuff. But it, as I said, it's easy to do on the computer. You grab the whole thing and just curve it and see what you get.
Tell everybody that. I charge you money for that.
But you go to say, then stretch them out a little bit. No. So,
Right, so,
okay, so we have a go ahead.
They're asking if we'll come
Yeah.
back at the next meeting.
Okay. Supposed to be in Florida, but I'll come back. I'll have to change it. Yeah, I don't want to delay it more than happen. So, yeah.
So we'll come back in 2 weeks with another, one more layout of something in between.
Okay, get it to us as early as possible. What time we're
right,
going to
it's, the meeting is actually on March 12th,
Yes.
Tuesday, March 12th, so it's a little over 2 weeks, but.
Okay. And to be honest, we still don't have something from conservation. Is there any
They
chance
meet Thursday
we
evening.
would? I'll actually be at their meeting for something else, but hopefully they'll be working on
I don't know where they are. I'm married to a commissioner.
it.
Lucky me.
So that boulder stand I heard.
No, I served on all of them, school board, planning board,
You've done your time.
selectmen,
I appreciate you not
budget
giving me.
advisory.
Again, I appreciate how frustrating it can be. I really do. But if we do the work now, it gets done well. And hey, sales can blame it on us.
That's right.
Any other questions or information you want me to be coming back with so we can make sure that our next meeting is fruitful?
Only thing is, I know we're still doing conceptual, non-definitive, but if you have a sudden lightning, oh my God, this is a good one, and a question for DPW, ask them. You know,
A question for the
a question for DPW.
We submitted the plans to them that were submitted to you. They
Yeah.
gave us initial comments. I don't think they had any issues with road width or length.
I didn't say that.
And they made some suggestions on how to handle drainage.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the DPW comments were definitive plan level comments about, drainage and.
I just want.
very
I don't know what you're going to
technical.
come across when you know the property better than we do. As you come across something like that, because I'm happy to get you guys. I would recommend that less talking and more doing is a good thing at some point.
I have one more question for John, not exactly related, but it's somewhat related. The water line proposal, which would need to get back to 2A, I presume,
Yep, water and sewer both out at 2A.
it's a pump station requirement or whatever. When you go beyond your property, and you have to contend with the wetlands that are all through that road, that's clearly a conservation issue.
Anywhere within 100 feet of the wetlands needs
Yeah,
conservation approval. Yep.
That particular piece of work, did you say you were gonna use like a boring machine or something like that?
The plan
Directional drilling,
shows.
directional boring,
Yep, plan shows using a directional drill under the culvert in Shaker Road, coming up in, is it the Millcourt property?
yeah, okay.
Not Millcourt.
So you have experience with that?
Yeah, we
Matting in line?
did the 8 lots out front, so we bored it up onto Snake Hill or whatever.
The sewer and water for those 8 lots up front were all directional drilled under the
That's
2A,
all-
so we didn't have to
that's
trench in 2A.
Is that enforcement, those E1 systems, is that enforcement going up, E1s? Okay. Got hundreds of them in my life.
They tie into the backside of the E1s that serve the Snake Hill system,
Today was the day everyone finally realized they have an E1 system.
without a battery backup.
Without a battery backup, they all beeped. They had batteries beeped, no, they all had batteries on them, so, okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Thank you.
see you in 2 weeks, I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Appreciate you, thank you,
We
for
need
helping
a
a lot.
vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, we gotta move, we need a motion for.
I don't know much.
Yes, yes.
I don't know much, but I follow that.
Transfer station, they agreed to that.
Right, that they agreed to.
I don't know when the last of that.
Would the applicant please stick around for one more moment? Okay.
You made a
You
motion.
made a motion?
You
All in
seconded
favor?
it.
Aye.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Just wanted to make sure we had you. You got it. You got the 2 week. Thank you very much for the 2 week extension. I'm sorry the phone rang. It's a fire panel. It's got to go.
Mark, can you paperwork? Let me know.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah.
So in the
So it's all official.
Yes.
in the interest of moving us forward, we're going to ask Mr. Minoyan to not present
show
to us
up?
this evening.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. So that's off the next agenda. Next agenda is discussion of the Air Devon's Jurisdiction Disposition Study Committee. If I remember correctly, we discussed this last time. Member Krantz said he had some interest in doing it. Did anybody else? And I couldn't recall. Okay.
Oh, okay, good. So, yeah, they're seeking 2 people from the planning board, so.
So I'd like to nominate members Krantz and Diskin to be on the Ayers Devon's Jurisdiction Disposition Study Committee. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Definitely not.
How many times a month is this gonna be?
You asked that after you said you were interested.
All in favor?
Case in point, sitting here right now, you asked those questions before you put your name in there.
I don't even believe it's once a month at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
sure.
Yet to be determined.
Add
No, I
3
think it's-
more
I think
hours
it's 4 to
and
6
4 more
times a year.
days.
Yes.
My understanding, the load was 4 to 6
That's
times.
fine,
a year.
I'm just, yes,
Yeah.
I just said the marijuana committee is meeting twice a month with this twice a month, so I just wanted to see.
Yeah, not to be confused. It's
All right, good. I just
not,
said it's a
not
different thing.
often.
It's not often, then fine.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, that's good.
Get it in writing.
We just voted you in.
You did?
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed.
I'm just gonna vote for you, Barry.
There you go. Okay, great. Town planner update.
Okay, I'll start with the recreational marijuana zoning bylaw. Work is undergoing. Jonathan Krantz is on that committee. We've been meeting twice a month for the last 2 months. We have a meeting this Thursday afternoon at which the bylaw hopefully will be finalized.
Cool.
And I'll be able to give a short presentation to the planning board at the next meeting on the bylaw. Yes.
Is that appropriate?
Yes, I don't want to talk about zoning districts or anything like
No.
that yet, because it's not out of the committee.
Oh, I see.
Right, but, you know, we're mostly addressing non-retail, we're addressing the
Of course.
cultivation, manufacturing of the edibles and all that sort of thing. We're not talking new retail shops. So, we can say that.
I just don't know why I can't say or can't say.
Well, it's there's nothing,
I will say,
top secret. It's
No,
more like we still haven't decided on
I think that the planning
final
board would
parameters.
be pleased to know that in the discussions, there seems to be a consensus that leans more to special permit versus as applied.
Yes.
And so I think in that, we believe is precisely in light of that this is all new territory and it's all new ground, plus the fact that we can give people politically reassurance that these will all be profoundly reviewed, because nothing's just gonna get slipped in. So I just wanted to assure the board, the planning board, that's the direction that the committee's going.
That's good. Okay, on to the next.
Don't forget about it. Do it again.
The next item is the DPW director, Mark Wetzel, has requested that the planning board endorse a letter of support for what's called the Municipal Vulnerability Grant, which I believe comes from the state, to assist towns with planning for climate change adaptation, such as the culvert size, drainage issues, the intensity of storms, public health impacts, and all that sort of thing. Devon's completed one of these studies as a pilot project last year. And so I drafted a letter of support based on.
We don't have that yet.
And this
it wasn't a
This
packet.
got sent out over the weekend.
It wasn't a packet.
Yeah,
It was?
yeah, it's right
Which
there.
one's
It's there. It's just got hidden a little behind. You got it.
So-
Oh, okay, got it.
Right,
got it.
yep.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just forwarding a clean copy to Jeff.
This
If the board is if the board is in agreement, there should be a motion made for the planning board to support the letter of support for the MVP grant, which the Department of Public Works is seeking.
I'm going to add to that, if I may, that this came to our attention just before the meeting that got canceled due to the snow. And so I spoke to both Dan and Mark over at DPW, and they were more than willing to spend some time sending along talking points. But this is one of those things that we should do.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to get that. So accept a motion that we support our Department of Public Works and sign a letter of support for the MVP grant.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
The only discussion I have is the date on the letter. This refers to a planning board meeting that we didn't, that was the meeting we
Yep.
didn't have, so the letter needs to be changed.
Oh, I changed it in the one that I just gave to Jeff. I changed it. I think I changed
Nope.
the date. No?
Nope. So there's a second date here. What I'm going to do, Mark, is this.
Okay.
With the board's approval, we will edit this, and I will make a plan to drop by and have it been
Oh,
signed.
that's right.
Okay?
Oh, yes.
Good. Thank you.
I see what you mean.
No worries.
I didn't change February 12th. I changed it to line above.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
We'll change that.
Thank you all. So that's done. Mark, once it's done, call me on the phone. I'll send you an email.
Yes.
I'll swing by and take care of it.
Great.
Fair enough.
I did.
Oh,
you were discussing. We all said aye, and then you said I have discussion, which is
I'll
classically
discuss,
how
okay.
things go.
You did? Sorry.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We did say aye. Yeah, you were discussing, I think, mid-aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, the second letter of support concerns something that has been in the works, I take it, for years, which is the open space and recreation plan. Work on this actually predated the work on the master plan, which was adopted last spring. I guess the open space and recreation plans have to be approved by an agency of the state, and they're very, very picky about what is in the plan. I mean, yes, there were some deficiencies about ADA compatibility and a few other very technical items, such that the committee itself felt that they needed some assistance. So Robert Pomprian, the town manager, contracted with the Nashua River Watershed Association to finish the plan, finish the small items that needed to be completed in order for the plan to get across the finish line of being approved by the state. And the open space and recreation plan is important because the town needs an approved plan in order to apply for grant funding related to parks and open space.
Yep.
And so I drafted a letter. Actually, this letter was mostly drafted by Al Futterman at the Watershed Association. And so I drafted that as a letter of support. Now, I know the plan goes back a few years. Most of the members here probably have not read it thoroughly. I looked at it fairly closely when I first came on. But it looks like, a good plan. It's compatible with the master plan. So again, the Watershed Association and the town manager are requesting that the planning board make a motion and sign a letter of support for the open space plan.
All right.
Want me to ask for the motion,
No,
gentlemen?
this is it. I make a motion that
There we go. Good.
support
The signing of the letter, yep.
the signing of a letter of support for the open space and recreation plan. Date, do I need the date? The dated, please.
February 25th. And here's a clean copy, and here's a leaf.
Got a motion. Next, do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah. Go first, Patrick.
That plan is absolutely fantastic. It's very, very in-depth. And I recommend everybody in this board, of course, but not only that, everyone in the town, read it because you'll learn a lot about the town of Ayer. The importance of open space and recreation and how they connected all with all the drawings that are in there. So I only went to a couple of meetings as a person watching the board. I was not on any committees, but you did a great job.
Yeah.
We met in Mark's office, right?
Yes.
For a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just making sure I was there.
Yeah. We were there.
There are 5 pages of goals with the plan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And if you'll notice, everywhere it says PB, so responsible party PB, that's us. You'll notice that of these items, that covers about 2/3 or 3/4 of these. So what that means is, we got a boatload of work to do. And I just want to make sure that we got it collectively, we acknowledge that, and we put on the feet that actually some of these are due timeline 2019 through 2020, means we should be thinking sooner rather than later about meeting these obligations. That's my only comment. I just want us to be cognizant of this, because we're going to have to add these items onto our agenda even as we're taking in input for things to review. That's it.
And thank you very much. And if I recall, where the PB is going to find, you're also going to find DBW here. And one of the things that we talked about, and I don't want to put Mark and Dan and his crew on the line. I say their names a lot. They're very active and very good. A lot of this is probably very much farther down the road than we think.
That's fair.
And it just means getting together, coalescing, and getting it over the finish line. And that was the expectation. Yes, we did do this before.
Yeah.
One of the first committees I served on here in
You
town.
didn't have the new fancy office. That would have been nice in there.
Yep. So, any further discussion?
Yes. I did have one tiny concern.
Yes.
Now that my friend showed this section of the report, it reminded me there was a separate grant given out recently by that was granted to Montechusett, where they itemized the open space and recorded the open space and developed a drawing.
Oh, prioritize.
Prioritize the open space was the word I'm looking for, sorry.
Yeah.
And they developed a drawing, I believe the drawing's upstairs, and it was done with the intent that the Conservation Commission would have a goal to obtain the open space, since we passed that article at town meeting and funded the Conservation Fund.
Yes.
So my only concern with this report, and it's really not a big concern, is that the priorities that you just mentioned match our town's master plan, and then the work that was recently done to develop the priority locations for keeping open space. So that's the only thing.
Thank you.
There was some. I was on that group with the Montechusett people that went through that whole priority list, and it wasn't that easy to put that list together.
It's not easy at all.
So
I'm sure.
it's just we should be looking at that. So that's all I had. I thought it was great.
Further discussion?
No, it's great.
All in favor of the planning board signing?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. There we go. Any other announcements, Mark?
The only other item on the agenda is board reorganization.
Actually, okay. Thank you. Along those lines, if I may, I discussed about board reorganization. Board reorganization is a nice way of putting on the piece of paper that we are short a member. We have been short a member for a long time. And there have been interested parties asking me in public, and all of us in public, what's going on with that other member. We have sent multiple letters to the other member, not only from the board, but also from the town administrator's office. We're at somewhat of a standstill at this point. I would like to ask the board if they would like to do a reorganization of the board that would be chair, vice chair, and clerk, down a member. Or not. If I'm not mistaken, Member Kennedy's term is two elections out. We have an election now, with one open spot.
Correct.
Which if you haven't signed his papers, please sign Jonathan's papers. And then I think Sue's up the next one, am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, next year. So it's a challenge. Some other ideas have been floated. I'm not sure how behind these are, expanding the size of the board to 7 people. The history of the board is it's gone through a period of time of a great deal of upset. We are in a time when it is becoming financially feasible to develop more and more expensive parcels of land.
That's right.
We're wrestling with that right now, both on Littleton Road and on Shaker. There's more going to come.
That's right.
So that was one of the conversations I haven't had it formally with anybody, but thinking if we go to 7 members, we're all set.
Also,
Excuse me. If we go to 7 members, we have more people doing the work.
right.
Okay, but and I don't know the Ruth. Maybe you could have the history. Was the planning board ever a 7-member board in the past?
As far as I know, it's already been fine.
But it's never been 3. It's been 5. Yeah.
5 years.
What do you think about
5 members in 5 years.
Yes.
What about I remember you floated last time the idea maybe alternates,
we have
so
the
that we
ability
can
to
always
have
have.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Regulations.
Always
Yes,
be
we
there.
did.
The alternates in our regulations, and I made the comment, and I was gonna bring up in new business, if you guys have noticed our wonderful signs that we now have in our town hall. I already
Talking
asked
about the
the,
electronics?
yes, I've asked the,
The big TVs.
I asked the new, Knox, the IT lady, if we could do this and give to the board to vote, to advertise that we have an open space for a alternate member
Great.
on those. As people come in and tell, oh, hey, they didn't know, because not everyone checks the website for those things, which is where it's been posted.
Right.
And we might even be able to do that. But to get
Yeah.
the alternate member here,
That yeah, exactly. So
I would suggest, look, we think about the workload. Having 7 doesn't, the real thing that keeps everything going is having a quorum at each meeting.
Yes.
What gets things moving. I would say that preliminary to it going from 5 to 7, I think that going to having an alternate would be a really good idea. For 2 alternates.
yes, the plan, we had gone out and looked for alternates in the past, and we had identified 2 alternates. Jonathan was one of them, and there was another person. You just didn't move fast enough, and we said, please help. And we're happy that you did. So, why don't we do this? Why don't we spend a month or so looking for alternate people?
And propose them.
And no, the changing of the number of members on a board is a challenge.
Yeah.
It really is.
But getting the alternates
Okay.
isn't a big deal, right?
We don't know.
alternates are already allowed under regulations.
Well, yes, but finding people to actually sit in the seats as
Right.
alternates.
Oh,
Okay,
fine.
whether or not there's 6 seats on, there are 5 seats on the bus, that's not the important piece. The important piece is there are enough people to fill those 5 seats on the bus when we need them.
Competent.
So,
We need 2 alternates
yes,
in the event that 2 of us can't come to a meeting, but they need to be, I think they have to be assigned as alternate 1 and alternate 2.
No, alternates
don't
are
they?
actually gonna be
I don't know.
appointed, because they're not technically full-blood members.
Yeah.
They only fill in the need of, if there's no quorum.
exactly.
So they wouldn't be technically have to attend every meeting, they just, especially with a high quality, like if you had a site plan review coming up that was a definitive subdivision that was controversial, they would be there for all of those meetings, same as you, have to be there for all of those meetings.
Yes.
They miss one, so like, if you have
Right.
5 people, and you have the alternate, then that person's not gonna vote, no matter what.
Yeah.
But someone's absent, they now step in.
Yes.
But if they were not present for all those meetings, they cannot.
And there's still a regulation that for them to be able to vote, they have to have attended those prior.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. But, and barring weather and other things, we can pretty much predict what's gonna happen on it. So, okay. So I think, let's table the conversation about expanding the size of the board.
Right.
Because quite honestly, I've gone through boards getting larger and getting smaller, and it changes with the time. That can be helpful. So why don't we see what we've got for alternates? And I believe, Mark, do we have any? We had alternates in the past. Maybe Carly might have the names.
She might.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was another person or two who was
Who showed
interested in the
interest.
board back when Ken came on. So
That's right.
Jonathan, you were one, and there was another person or two, I believe. So
One of those people might be on conservation now. There were a couple of others.
Yeah. So
But we can also put an ad on the town website. And,
Yep.
yes.
And given that, I'd also like to say to anybody who's watching this from home, thank you for still being awake.
If you are, you might be a candidate.
Join the fun.
We're a fun group of folks.
I
By all
can
means,
say-
come on down. Do I sound like
Yes, the video to prove it.
Do I sound like Select Person Livingston here? It's a fun group of things. We do great stuff.
I have someone small for you, Jim.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask that. Anyone else can reach out. Mark, do you have anything else on your list? I'm
Can I
sorry.
add one quick little asterisk?
Yeah.
This is quick and really random, but because we've had this discussion in my own household, there is a select group of people that cannot be elected into this that work at the federal Devon's prison, because they are not allowed to hold elected positions, but they are allowed to be appointed. So that distinction on the alternate might apply to some people
Yes.
that would never normally know they could come and do
Yes.
this. So if you happen to know a federal employee,
We all know a lot of them after what happened this year.
well, that's where I'm just letting you know that they might not realize they could serve as an
Yes.
alternate, while they could not serve as an elected.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
That's my 2 cents. Ken's got 2
I did
points.
not know.
I
I
just-
ethics test too.
I just think
No.
they wouldn't know
Anything
that.
else,
So I think
No,
it's where
that
we
is
need
it.
to.
Okay, great.
I have something.
Yes, thank you.
Ken has one.
New business.
There you go.
Yeah, lay it on.
So, actually, one is not new business, one is the subdivision
Regulations.
regulations discussion, which Mark and I and Dan Sheldon
Yes.
have been working on since, I didn't realize it, since last September. And we've got a draft, it's pretty much complete, and I asked Mark maybe like next month to bring it to the board so you guys can start looking at it. And then we'll have to approve it, as a board. But one of the things that came up tonight in this discussion of the long driveways, the common driveways, is when you look at the and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look at the subdivision regulations, and it talks about common driveways, part of the requirement of a common driveway is that you have to have, all the houses on the common driveway have to have legitimate frontage first. In order for one of those common driveways one driveway then to take up those 3 houses. So it's precluded on the fact that you would have, let's say, just as an example, these 3 in a row on a street. Here's the street.
Yeah.
But because we're trying to save pavement,
Yeah.
and we're trying to conserve open space, we would allow, a common driveway to come in, one legitimate frontage, go like something like this to 1, 2, 3 houses.
Yes.
Doesn't take the form of what we saw typically tonight in the OSRD, where
Yes.
it's along 3 of them off.
Yeah.
So it started with the concept that you would have the 100-foot frontage
From each one of the parcels on the
on a
common driveway. Yes.
So there's a number of things that are going to be complicated about how we match these things up.
Exactly. And there's an argument, and when we get to a plan like this, and I don't know where in town it would apply, where we would give a waiver on frontage in order to maintain high value open space on a property, where you literally, like I said, you come in on the corner, you drive all the way around the property to get to the houses back here, because they're landlocked in such a way you can't get. There's no roads anywhere else. We don't necessarily have that here, and our topography doesn't exactly lend itself to that. But there's a couple of places in town where people have started work and stopped work, and we're one of them, where that may be a good application up there. So
I said a couple of things, about my thoughts about what the OSRD is supposed to be to me, but I'm not sure if that's what the rest of the board thought, but in my estimation, the idea was to cluster, bring lots closer to the front, keeping the qualified. It just as it turns out that that's not the way some of the land lays out that we're looking at. So
it's easy. When you talk about the OSRD and you think about it intellectually, it's very easy to build that cluster view.
right, but that's
Exactly. But there's no topography involved, there's no water features involved, there's no...
Reality.
Yeah,
It's
so-
slapping us out
I
there.
have one final thing which I'd like to pass out.
Thank you, sir.
And this came about because of some research that I was doing about some of the open space principles and other principles. And if you could enter that into the record or whatever. This is many of the concepts that are talked about in our master plan and in the open space plan and in other developments that are coming in town revolve around these goals and sustainable development principles. This is a term that was done by the state and encouraged by the state. And the idea is that as projects come before us and we look at the requirements of a project, these are goals that should be, I think, in our mind to think about. And when we hear Alan Minogue, this stuff, there's a lot about this. Well, I was hoping Alan was going to be here tonight because I wanted to give this to Alan. But he goes into this much more deeply than we do, right off the top of his head, because he knows it. Anyway, these are principles I think that we look at, or I would like to use to look at when we look at projects that are under development.
I want to back what Ken's saying. It's just totally coincidental you brought this in today, because one of the things I was thinking about when approaching this meeting was what are our guiding principles? You know, we come here to meet, we review stuff, but what's behind it? What's our foundation? What do we believe? What do we value? What do we stand on? And I'm glad you brought this up because I think we ought to have some kind of common understanding about what we value, what we want to see, and our roles, rather than just always just simply, okay, stuff comes in, we react to it based on that. I mean, where are we moving to? You know, what are we about?
It's actually a pretty good question. So I will caution you about something also.
Sure.
Read 1 through 10. 10 is planned regionally.
No,
Okay. I spend a lot of this. Just me. I spend a lot of time working on transportation alternatives.
Yeah.
Transportation alternatives in this part of Massachusetts is pickup truck or sedan.
Right, but when we talk about it regionally, we talk about the
Bicycle is not necessarily always a viable source because we're not connected just yet.
Oh, no.
Okay, but you know, I went to a ghost bike ceremony yesterday. And transportation alternatives there. It doesn't make sense to have an 8-lane road in the Fenway.
Yeah.
We do.
It's a tough spot.
Okay, so but when you plan regionally, that's one. To your point about principles. It is nice that we as a board sometimes see problems the same way. And we value problems, we value our resources the same way. And that's currently, I think, what's happening here in town. We are going to be put in situations where our individual interpretation of the law and the bylaw we have are going to hopefully put us in a situation where we're seriously thinking about it and discussing it. This is, to me, fantastic in that it's a great group of items we should keep in our minds. Unfortunately, the way the process has worked in the past, and we saw it happen tonight, we lived through it, is let's see what we can get. They didn't like it, okay, let's see what we can get. Now we can argue and go to court. And I'm not saying it's a good or a bad process, but that's the process. The applicant don't always necessarily come to us. Heather and Mark had worked on doing a checklist. The reason the checklist is to bring us a more complete thinking process before we're here. As we move forward, as the engineers who deal with this board begin to learn about us, they will start to approach us differently. I think Dan Aho, is it Dan?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I light one off. The other gentleman who was here was angry because they're used to being in yelling sessions over plants and driveways.
That's right.
I don't think anybody at this table doesn't want housing over there.
No.
I think everybody in this table brings to the discussion understanding that that is by right, not by that is a piece of land that can be developed. They have rights to developing that land. How we negotiate a settlement in the best interest of the town that allows the developer to go do something responsibly is where we're going.
I think yes, but I do want to make the point that it is not the purpose of the planning board to maximize the value of any property for any private interest.
If you say the economic value.
I said private value.
Yes.
But
yes.
So we're always balancing sometimes contradictory interests to arrive at what's most fair, honest, of course within the boundaries of the law, and hopefully to arrive at something that satisfies many constituencies, not just any particular one.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, there's going to be conflict sometimes, and sometimes people are going to be pissed off. But I will say that already, like number 3, making efficient decisions. We're already making moves in that to codify, improve the bylaws, review them, come up with processes. We're doing that. I just do think, I agree with Ken, and I do think keeping things in the back of the mind, you know, within the confines of the law and our authority, where we go.
Exactly.
I'm so glad that Jonathan made those comments. I did want to make sure I heard from Mark about this and Illinois because they're the professionals, of course. But I didn't want to, get the board going in the direction that we didn't have agreement from our plan.
I support those 100%.
I just felt that Mark,
I think he's in this picture.
and I want to read the underlined sentence that I have here under our conservation analysis and findings under the OSRD. The planning board shall, this doesn't say could, the word is shall. The planning board shall deny any application that does not include sufficient information to make conservation findings or that does not preserve land that the planning board determines should be preserved from development as a result of the conservation analysis and findings.
Yes.
Shall deny. So if an applicant were to follow the letter of this bylaw, he should understand we have the ability to deny it if we don't really agree as a board that this is the best use of the land. So I'm just putting that up to you. We do have some latitude here to make a decision. And the other thing I'd like to follow up on is Jonathan hit the nail right on the head, because I started with this process as an attendee. I attended meetings by boards, and because of a project that is still out there, okay? And what I noticed was that everything that was driven by the applicant, and I made this comment last week on television, again, and that's not the way I think things should be done. I think it's well known that it's a great start for us to establish what we want to stand for, and I think we made a great move tonight on the detention and retention basis. That we want to stand for that as an important goal. And the more goals we put out there and the more information we put out there, I agree with you 100% that the applicants will react to that and the projects will start to come in without pushing for the, variances and not change, that's not the right word, waivers is the word, and so forth.
We have, as this sitting board has sat in the last year on a couple of fairly contentious issues, but we won't tell them. We revisited. I went to that twice, guys. We approved it over next to Jarvis. Now we've approved it around the corner.
Yeah.
Same contentious arguments, okay? But as a board, and the town is becoming better at recognizing and identifying for the applicants before they come in. There wasn't a planner. No one could walk in here and say,
Right, that's a big step.
what's the planning board thinking? Mark did yeoman's duty in letting John know that we don't want to just say waiver.
Exactly.
I think there's an argument for a waiver. Whether or not we'll approve it or not, I can't say. But having seen what they've done, there's an argument for a waiver. I dislike being told that, well, I can do 50 units here. I don't need you.
Yeah.
But that is going to happen.
I know.
People negotiate differently. Everyone's got their own style, and I'm not sure people. I know Member Diskin spends time in front of other planning boards.
Not anymore.
Well, but your experience over the years, I'm not kidding when I say violent villages on curvilinear roads with single arterials. That is the motto by which almost all developments that are being done in edge spaces in this country are happening right now. And they're coming up with thousands of units. Anyway, any other business? We're getting kind of late. I appreciate you all putting up with the fact that the fire department's been calling. With that being said, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting today on the 25th of February in 2019.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Thank you, Jeff.